Hello, my friends, and welcome to a space where pleasure is treasured, relaxation is not what you think it is, and life firing on all cylinders is what we're about. If you are somebody who wakes up every day asking for way more, consider this your happy place. Welcome to the Creation of Living podcast. I'm your host, Heather Nichols. Let's dive in. Welcome, everybody, to the Creation of Living podcast. I am here this week with one of my absolute favorite people in the world and somebody who has been an enormous gift, an enormous contribution to my life in ways that I could never possibly put into words. Mr. Gary Douglas, who is the founder of Access Consciousness and just a magician of absolute magnitude, and I'm so honored and grateful to have you here today, Gary. Thank you
you.
so
It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Heather.
much. Yeah, so I wanted to have a chat with you about a recent topic that's come up in
Okay.
Access Consciousness about poverty. And
Yes.
recently, you and I had a conversation in a session that I did with you where I realized how much poverty I was doing, and how much poverty goes so beyond money. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing that I recognized is when people discount themselves, you say, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm terrible, I'm no good at this, I can't do this. All you're doing is creating a poverty for yourself. You're making you so not valuable that you will never allow yourself to receive, which creates poverty.
Yeah. So say more about that, because that's a big in access. That's a big topic, receiving. And we play with it, we explore it, we talk about it in ways that most people aren't really familiar with. Like, I had never really heard about receiving in this way
Well, I
before
mean,
Access
receiving is
Consciousness.
something that we don't, it's like we basically have in our culture that you can perceive, know, and be. Okay. And you know you're being when you're doing concern for others and when you're proving that you are kind and caring. But what else? What else is possible? And one of the things I discovered is that there's being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving. And receiving is the most important aspect of our lives. It's like, and most people do sex from the point of view of what can I do for the other person, not what can I receive from this person.
Hmm.
And it's like when you receive from a person sexually, it's like you have a whole different experience of sex and you have a whole different experience with the person. If you're trying to be something or think something or do something so that you can perceive, know, and be, it's like, what do you know? What do you
Wow.
know about the person? If I do this, they're going to get this. Is not receiving nor gifting. It's concluding. And if you have to conclude, you have to do the lowest common denominator you can get, which is what creates poverty.
Wow. Okay, well, we could just stop right there.
Okay, we're done. Thanks.
There's so many things in that. I want to like rewind and ask you a million questions.
Feel
Um,
free.
well, yeah. So that's interesting. So to think about poverty with sex,
Yeah.
and how like just the computation that people do, and this
Well,
whole
I
thing
mean,
about
most of it's
proving.
computation. I mean, I used to have sex, and the women would say, "Are you going to call me in the morning?" I go, "What?" It's like for me, sex was about fun. It wasn't a goal. It wasn't a target that I had to fulfill in order to get something. I just had fun with it. I liked it. And it's like, and I discovered even recently that most people don't do sex because it's fun. They do it because they want to get something else.
Yeah.
And that means you don't consider sex an abundance or a possibility or a gift, you think it is a exchange. And if you're doing exchange, you're trading tit for tat, you know?
Sometimes literally.
Yeah, sometimes literally. Yeah. What you
Yeah.
getting, the tit or the tat?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Wow. As opposed to like the how it could be an adventure and an exploration and
And how it could be something that was going to create greater for both of you.
yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Like so such a reality that most people don't even
Well,
know exists.
they don't know it exists. They don't want to know it exists is the worst part.
Yeah.
They want to believe that if I do this, it's like I noticed that lots of the women that I was friends with over time, they would have sex with some guy and then they'd decide, okay, he's the one. And I would look at it and go, why? And I had friends who, were beaten by their lovers. And it's like, and I'm going, why are you staying with this guy? Well, he loves me. Why is beating you loving you? I don't get it. I personally don't consider beating somebody a loving example,
Yeah.
but that's me. I
Yeah.
don't have a normal point of view, and a
Yeah.
whole lot of people had the idea that, it's like I had this one lady who she and her husband were devout Christians, but he would beat her and their kid because you needed to get God's orders in place.
Wow.
And he
Yeah.
knew God's orders and she didn't.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you stay with this man? She divorced me. She
Mm.
didn't divorce him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely are that in people's worlds. This you have been that in my world so beautifully. Just this like you shine this light of awareness, where in for me, like in places where I never would have considered looking,
Yeah,
and that I think people have to really be willing to have something different and asking for something different to receive
true.
that.
But you have to be willing to ask for something different in order to have the life you'd really like to live. Most people
Yeah.
don't recognize if you don't ask, you can't receive.
Yeah. So say more about that. That has been one of the coolest things that has changed for
Well,
me so much over the years with using the
well,
tools of
even in the
access.
Bible, it says, ask and you shall receive. It's like, what does that mean? And I went, oh, it means if you have a question, you can receive a different point of view. If you have an answer, you can't receive anything that doesn't match your answer already.
Mm.
You have a conclusion, an answer. And I talked with a lady today who was like, oh, my life sucks. Blah, 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 blah. I go, good God, could you be more whiner? You know?
So talk about the poverty, the poverty consciousness. You are doing a telecall coming up called Poverty Consciousness. Talk about the poverty consciousness underlying all of that, like the
Well, the
underlying
poverty
view.
consciousness is that place where you think that you have to come to the right conclusion in order to get. In order to have money, in order for my bank account to grow, I've got to get the right answer. Well, it's not the right answer. It's the right question that determines it. I used to ask, okay, so what's worth more money in this place that I walk into, this antique shop? What's worth more money than anything else in here? And I'd get my attention dragged to something. And I'd look at it and I go, oh, you're right. That's worth $5,000. They wanted 200 for it.
Whenever you tell, because I've heard you tell stories like that a lot, and when you do, I'm always so struck by how implicitly you trust yourself to just
Well,
go, okay, yes, I'm going to follow that.
well, I tend to trust myself because of all the times that I decided I was going to have sex with somebody. I went, oh, this is going to turn out badly. And I went, it'll be fine. And I made myself go there and have sex with the person anyway. And it turned out exactly the way I knew it would. And it wasn't that great.
So you didn't always implicitly trust yourself?
No, no, I had to learn. And it's like, and I learned a lot from dating and sex. You know,
Yeah,
those are two good places to learn from.
yeah. Well, and one of the things we talk about in Access is choice creates awareness,
Yes,
right?
and
And
choice does.
yeah. So can you say more about that?
Well, I chose to have sex with these people when I knew it wasn't going to be good, and I knew it wasn't going to turn out well. I knew it wasn't going to be anything I was really interested in having. I did it anyway because they were cute, because they had a nice ass, they had nice tits, they had, and they had the ultimate vagina.
The ultimate vagina is like the one in front of you, right?
Yes, the ultimate vagina is the one that's open and available to you.
Yeah, and then, same with penises, right? So,
Yes,
yeah. So if somebody was asking to have more trust in their knowing,
I'd
what would you
say go
recommend?
back and look at where you knew you shouldn't have sex with somebody and you did.
Hmm.
It's always a very big place where you get, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. And you know you
Yeah.
shouldn't have done it, but you chose to do it. And it's
Yeah.
like, that was fucking stupid.
It's such a clear place where we like
It's
I
much
think
clearer
everybody can
because
relate.
because the only thing you can do is judge you wrong or judge them wrong. You cannot look at what is. You got to be willing to look at what is. Is this going to turn out well? I
Yeah.
would at this point ask, okay, I'd like to have sex with this person. Will this be easy? Will it be fun? Will I learn something? And will I have to call them in the morning?
Mm,
These are the four questions I have.
yeah.
If I don't have to call them in the morning, good. Is it going to be easy? Good. Is it going to be fun? Good.
Hmm.
You know, and you take those four items, you use those, and it's like you have a whole different world to look from. And
Yeah.
I think it's better to look from a big world than a small world.
Yeah.
Most people create a life that is controllable, and that's the postage stamp life. That's the minuscule life. That's the poverty-stricken life.
Yeah. So yeah, the postage stamp life, that whenever we started talking about that years ago, that really struck me. Like, and it's amazing because I still have moments where I'm like, oh, my life has gotten bigger and it still has postage stamp, like it's still
It
got
still
that.
has containers of poverty.
Yeah. Okay, that. So talk about that.
Well, it's like the thing is, you look at the places where you're not willing to be great. It's like you have a pretty good capacity to create great mixed drinks. Okay.
Yes.
It's one of your talents. Now, you haven't written a cookbook for great drinks.
That's so
Why?
funny that you say that. I have recipes on post-it notes like everywhere. And I've been saying for years that I would, and I
And you
think I'm
haven't.
gonna do it now. I'm gonna do it.
See, that's your poverty place. That's where you will not earn money from what you do great.
Wow. Okay, that changes now. Yeah,
Good.
that's cool. I love that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just these things that are so simple that are right in front of us that we disregard.
Yeah. But we usually disregard what would make us greater because that way we don't have to be greater.
Wow. Wow.
You know, if you were to take your recipes and make a book, you might get people that invite you to come to their parties just to make drinks. I will gladly do that. It'll cost you $3,000
All right.
or
That's great.
$3,000 an hour, or
Yeah. Yeah. I do make really some of the best drinks in the world.
yeah, you're very good at it.
Yeah.
It's like, and you should be paid for it, but you won't ever take money for it.
Wow. Wow.
Nor will you take alcohol. You just want to have a few drinks.
I know that's funny because I don't even drink right now. I'm not even drinking right now.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So if for someone listening who, would like to apply this to their lives, like what types of questions would you recommend they start to
What
ask?
am I really good at that I'm not acknowledging? Yeah, I had a guy that I saw him as very bright and very intelligent, and he had been told he was stupid his whole life. His mother told him he was stupid. His father told him he was stupid. His relatives told him he was stupid. The teachers told him he was stupid. So he decided he was stupid. So finally, after my pounding on him continuously, I got him to go take a test. He found out his intelligence is in the top 2% of the nation. Now he's a different guy. He looks different, he talks different, he walks different, and he stands different.
That's
He has a
amazing.
sense of pride in himself he never would have, because you can only have pride in yourself if you have so much money in the bank, or if you have the right tools for everybody else to see that you are amazing. And now he sees him as amazing, so he doesn't care whether anybody else sees it.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
And it's not about being validated by the test or anything. It's
no.
just like a change in your point of view.
Changing your point of view, change your point of view, change your reality. You
Yeah.
know, it's a whole lot more fun and a whole lot easier than people think. They want to make it hard, but life is not a penis. It doesn't need to be hard for it to be usable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with this poverty consciousness call that you're going to be doing in a few weeks, or
Yeah.
maybe even less than that, I guess a week and a half or so, um, what's your awareness of, like, I know when you put calls on, you have an awareness of some possibility.
Well, I have an awareness that people have been looking to be less than forever. And so I've got to try and turn that around so that they're willing to be something great forever. You know,
Wow.
what's it going to take? Not sure. Will I succeed? Don't know, but I'm going to try.
Wow. That people have been looking to be less than forever.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And the beauty of it is, like, I've learned this from you so much, from you and Dane here, who's also one of the creators of Access, like that it's when we be so much more, all of the things that we're asking for in our lives just show up. Like the money
Yeah.
just flows. Like I've had that
Money flows. Yeah.
just so many times where like I step into being
But the
something
good news, you
different
can
and
step
then
out of it and be less than with ease.
okay, I'm gonna stop doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a choice. We have to be willing to live for the choices we have, not for getting it right, not for being the person that everybody else sees as a right person, not for getting people to follow you, but being willing to follow what you know.
Yeah.
What are you aware of that you don't pay any attention to?
Wow.
You know, I have friends who are just brilliant with animals and crap with people, and they'll spend their lives trying to work with people. So why don't you try working with animals for a change? At least you can succeed with them.
Yeah.
They don't judge you. They just look at how they can help you and how you can help them.
Mhm. Wow. Beautiful.
Different world.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. This is beautiful and like such an incredible space and gift, really. I'm very
Yes.
grateful for this conversation.
Please, everybody, start looking at what am I great at that I'm not acknowledging. And start looking at what you're great at and do that. Like for me, at one point, I was doing upholstery for people. And I would walk into their house and they'd go, okay, see this rug over here? I want one of the colors in this rug for that chair over there. And I'd say, okay. And I'd go out and 6 months later, I'd find a piece of material that was exactly that color. And it's like I'd call them up and say, "Hey, did you get that chair upholstery?" And they go, "No." I said, "Well, I found some material that'll be exactly right for it. It'll match that rug." They said, "Wow, great. Can you get it for me?" "Sure." "How much is it?" And I wouldn't charge them anything. I just buy it for them.
Wow.
But I thought that because I could do it with such ease, it had no value.
Yeah.
It was only
That's,
later I discovered that not everybody can do that.
yeah. Yeah. And we really undervalue
We undervalue what we do well.
ourselves.
We undervalue what we can do, what we can be, how we can function. And it's like, it's great. I undervalue the fact that I had a dog who I would have puppies because she was a Santa Barbara Smiler. She was from Santa Barbara, and when she would look at you, she'd go and wag her tail and give you a smile. And so I called them Santa Barbara Smilers, and I would give them away, and I'd give the puppies away. And I got people with 6 dogs who were taking puppies from me.
Wow.
You know, they'd take her puppies because I just thought she was great, and I loved it because at one time I noticed that she was getting fatter and fatter and fatter, so I kept cutting back on her food until finally I was feeding her nothing, and she was still getting fatter. So I went out one day and I followed her as she left the house, and I stayed behind her quite a ways. And I discovered that she was hitting 3 different houses. She'd go to their sliding glass doors, smile at them, and they'd feed her.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And I went up and said, "Please stop feeding my dog. She's going to die from being overweight." And they said, "Okay, fine." So they cut down on it, but they didn't stop. So I never had to feed her again, which was always nice. But, you know, it was a great thing to see that she took what she knew how to do best, which was to smile, and she would use that to get whatever she wanted in life. What if we did that? What if we were like that?
Yes. Let's have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
if people would like more, they can join the poverty consciousness call, or there's so many other also places where they can tap into your brilliance, and we'll
Yeah.
link all of that in
Thank you.
where we publish this. So
You're
yeah.
wonderful, and don't write your book and don't sell it on your podcast because you might make money.
Okay. Well, I think you just started, so thank you.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Take care,
everybody,
dear
for
one.
being here, and we'll see you
Bye.
next time. Bye. Thank you for joining me for the Creation of Living podcast. If this conversation was inspiring to you, share the love. To work privately with me or for info on my upcoming classes and retreats, go to heathernichols.com. Have a beautiful day, and remember that the world thrives when you do.